All right, fellas, last but certainly not least, let's take a look back on the weekend that was in college football. The second week of the SEC action saw Alabama roasting Texas A&M, Florida throwing for some more touchdowns over South Carolina, and Georgia stuffing Auburn in a locker. The ACC saw Clemson's first test against Virginia, North Carolina stayed undefeated, and FSU avoided beyond going rock bottom. And while the Big 12 took some more hits as Oklahoma fell again, this time to Iowa State, and Texas also exited the playoff conversation with a loss to TCU. So, Drake, what stood out to you the most on this weekend of college football action?
The SEC is ready for the Big Ten to start play. Listen, here's the deal. The SEC, the Big 12, they ain't holding up their end of the deal. These other conferences ain't. The ACC, listen, you're not holding up your end of the deal. The Pac-12 can stay dead, but listen, we need the Big Ten. I seen a bunch of games, and listen, just the games you named off in the opening intro, like, listen, the Big 12 just they let the rest of the country down this weekend. So in 2 weeks we get the Big Ten back, and the SEC will be able to rest their shoulders a little bit. But here's the deal, Oklahoma fans, Auburn fans, yeah. Y'all can go kick rocks. Here's the deal. And I'm not just saying that because of the Iron Bowl Auburn fans. I'm just saying that because you decided not to show up. We could have plugged in a Division II game if you was going to come out here playing like that. Bo Nix came out here and showed everybody why he's about the most overrated quarterback in the whole country this weekend when he just let Georgia dog walk him. And then the Auburn defense let some no-name dude, I still don't remember his name, I never heard of the cat, a walk-on, and he come in here, he dropping dimes. Like he's snitching on everybody because he just dropping hella dimes out there. And you going to tell me you couldn't adjust? Hey, Gus Malzahn, you come up with another one of them, it might be that time, buddy. You know that hot seat come every 2 years. Oklahoma, y'all must want Lincoln Riley to head to the NFL. I'll tell you right now, my theory is Lincoln Riley, he's coming sooner than later. He's coming to the NFL. Just no way this guy, his name.
It ain't far down the road.
I'm just saying, right? Like, his name comes up in too many coaches' search in the NFL for me to think he's not going to come. And let me tell you what, you want to go out here and lose to Kansas State one week and then Iowa State the very next week? Hey, keep it up. Keep it up. Hey, my man to go out here and pull. Hey, I'm out. Interim coach, you got it, man. I'm out of here. Woo, yep. Load up the jet. This ain't it. You're supposed to be a powerhouse. You're supposed to be a playoff team every year. Not this year, you ain't. Oh yeah, next week, that high-powered Red River rivalry. Woo! Oklahoma versus Texas, one of the best rivalries in college football. You might end up on ESPN Plus. That's what might happen. Because I don't know who really gives a rat's ass other than them two fan bases about that game. You just sucked all the luster out of that game. But the SEC had faults too. Like I said, Auburn. Listen, you get the prime time slot, 8 o'clock. ESPN has poured all this money into advertising, and you show up here with a Friday night's lights. Like, no, that ain't it. That ain't it, right? We got to get better. And one thing I want to say is I'm hearing a lot of teams still saying, well, we're trying to adjust the plan with no fans. Oh, you still surprised? You still surprised that, it's not a full house? Speaking of full house, hey, somebody need to talk to Georgia and see if they comply to the COVID guidelines, because that stadium was a little raucous out there, and it looked pretty full to your boy. I'm just saying, it got pretty loud, and when the cameras panned out to the fans, the seats didn't look like they had that big of gaps in between them. I'm just going to throw that out there. I ain't snitching, but it looked a little funny out there, and I ain't see no mask getting thrown around either. So with that said, that you got to play better than that. Overall, we do see the product getting better and better from week to week. Next week, we got some powerhouse games. We got some good. Even the ACC, to its credit, going to have a pretty good game. I do think Miami and we're going to probably get into that on Friday. I do think they're going to have a powerhouse game in the ACC just as well as the other conferences. We're getting used to this now. Now we're understanding what we're watching. 25% fans, COVID guidelines. We're okay with this. Now let's just keep the positive testing down. Long as we can keep that going, I think we'll be happy. Big Ten come into town 2 weeks. Once we get them back in the fold, college football will feel more like it's fully back because we don't give a rat's ass about the Pac-12 unless you stay in that part of the United States. It is what it is. Holla at your boy. You got a problem, you can add me. You know what it is. So with all that said, we're getting somewhere. I did have some games I like. My boy Smoke Texas A&M, so that wasn't one of them. But it was some games, even though Texas and TCU was a clown show, it still was a good game. Texas lost, but it was a clown show. And that was I don't want to steal Jay Thunder because I know he had a lot to say about that game. But at the end of the day, the product was good. Those was the things that stood out to me. And, I'm looking forward to see more and more of college football this season.
Yeah, I guess I'll threw me out there based on the head shake that, I got some thoughts on Texas and TCU. Let's start off with a couple of quick hits before we get to the main event on my end. I think I've about had it with Texas A&M. I really have. They get these, and I know part of it is the Big Ten and being late to the party, and the Pac-12 being super late to the party, and they're going to show up late. No one's going to care. But Texas A&M, what are they ranked? Top 15 to start the season, and then of course, the first major test they get, and they just get, I don't even know what word to even use. They get just absolutely destroyed by a superior Alabama team. I don't know. I guess it's just going to be, a 7-5 type season for Jimbo Fisher every year until they get sick of it and say, well, goodbye. This was cool, but we would like to be a little bit better than we were under Kevin Sumlin. That's kind of where we hired you. And that's not the case right now. I don't see it. Could you at least be competitive? You have to get beat by 4 touchdowns every time you play Alabama. Is that too much to ask? Maybe it is. Anyway.
Be like that.
As you say, the Big 12, let me get the Big 12 real quick. Pulling up what I wanted to pull up, as you mentioned it. Here it is. This game, Texas and TCU had 26 penalties. I don't know. It was one of the worst games I have seen. This game, it was the longest game I've ever seen. It was like a 4.5-hour game. They were at one point, 10 minutes left in the third quarter, and it felt like other games that had started at noon were like midway through the fourth. That's how slow the game was going. Not only with penalties, but the referees would stop the game every 3 minutes to review something because they didn't know what they were doing out there. So that was terrible. And then you're right. I like the traditional rivalry games. Give me a little Florida State, Miami. Give me some Texas and Oklahoma. And those are like the rivalry games that are normally played in the middle of the regular season, not to the very end of rivalry week. I like having those games. But boy, oh boy, this is about to be a clunker. You're right. Nationally speaking, do we really care? Because those teams aren't that good in comparison to like what we think of them at the beginning of the season. So I'm not, the Big 12, here's a note for you. I know the Pac-12 isn't in play yet, and we didn't think they were going to play all year. My question would be, who called the Big 12 and said, hey, the Pac-12 ain't playing this year? Could you stand in for the Pac-12 so we can loft all the Pac-12 jokes to you? Who made that phone call? You didn't need to do that. But I guess somebody did that because the Big 12 is taking the Pac-12's place. They're a placeholder until they return. That's the way I see it right now. And on that note, speaking of conferences that aren't in play, we need the Big Ten. We really do. The SEC's trying to carry the flag, but they need some help. We feel like we're missing a little bit because the Big 12 stinks, and the ACC is Clemson and a bunch of teams that may be good, but we really don't know. So it's the SEC and just some the other conferences we just don't know. But hey, I want to go to Clemson real quick. I got a real good look at Clemson. They played Virginia. Let's give Virginia a little bit of credit. At least they made Clemson play into the fourth quarter. They did that. They made too many mistakes though to really seriously challenge them. But I got to be honest with you about Clemson. They're still formidable. They're still to be respected. They're still the team to beat in the ACC, and I still think they should be a shoo-in for the playoffs. But they don't look quite as good as they were last year. To me, they don't. I look at them and I see Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, and then I just see, I see a solid team. But when I think playoffs, I don't see this is a team that can win it all this year. I don't think that's what we have. Part of it is because I thought the loss of you lose T. Higgins to the draft, and then the injury to Justin Ross, that's pretty big. Give credit to Amari Rodgers. He looks like a really big weapon for them. But outside of him, I'm just a little unsure. I know they like this kid Ladson. I think that this Spector kid, he looks like the second coming of Hunter Renfrow. So I guess that's good for your old third down conversions in the slot. So that's good. I know this kid James Skowski with the neck pad. He's doing some good things on defense. We like that. But overall, I just got a feeling that I think Clemson is going to be a little bit similar to last year when they just roll everybody in the ACC, and then they show up to the playoffs, and it's just a little bit of a gut check, and you just have to. It takes them a little bit of time before they get acclimated to the competition. Remember, that was what happened against Ohio State in the semifinal. Ohio State came out, punched them in the mouth, but they didn't hit them hard enough. Eventually, Clemson got into the rhythm of the game, and they eventually overcame them. But I just look at Clemson, and I think making the playoff is their ceiling this year. It's going to be really interesting to see what Miami does to them next week. But that's my takeaways. I think just by and large, the SEC is leading the pack. We need the Big Ten. Clemson, I'm unsure of them in the big picture. In the Big 12, you don't have to. No one asked you seriously to take the Pac-12's place and let us make all the jokes to you because you're the conference that no one takes seriously. I'm gonna tell you right now, and also in the big picture, the Pac-12 is not making the playoffs. They're not gonna play enough games. The Big 12 right now, no one's making it unless, I guess, would you say Oklahoma State maybe? Oklahoma State would be the team that I guess would go. Maybe they win all their games and they get in. So we're going to have Clemson. I guess we'll have one Big Ten team. This is a real scenario where the SEC could get two teams.
That's very possible. You got to think if maybe Clemson were to stumble, they could get up to 3. You got just another SEC tournament going on. The biggest takeaway I had from this week was the fact that I'm looking at about 25, 30 games on computer screen right now. There were only 2 postponements. It was like Troy's game and Rice's game got postponed. But no big schools had a game postponed. Where at the start of the season, we were seeing a couple games. Virginia Tech had a pretty decent one postponed. There was some other major schools, that were stumbling with this. And while the NFL is starting to have to start their dance around COVID, so far, all things considered, college football is rolling along pretty well. Now we have, 2 conferences, and we allege a third one playing. And we're going to get the 4th one here soon. It looks like things are, for now, are rolling along pretty well in spite of all the Rona hysteria that's crept back up. But, as far as the games go, a couple quick hits. Like you said, I watched some of that Clemson game as well. And I really want to see Trevor Lawrence this season without some of these other weapons to see how he progresses and how he kind of changes his game. Because it's still a lot of just, here, Travis, run away with this, and it's not – I want to see him make some NFL throws. I think a lot of NFL teams are really this year going to go, okay, it's not worth taking first overall. I also look at, like you said, Jimbo Fisher getting just drugged. They didn't pay you $100 million for that, man. You can go win 7 games at Florida State. You get a statue right now. But, the A&M, they didn't pay you to do that. They paid you to at least show up. And that's not the case. And I would be remiss if I didn't briefly mention that Florida State avoided dredging the depths of rock bottom and managed to beat a Ohio Valley team storming back, no less. So good on them. They get to get drugged again against Notre Dame next week. Boy, there's a lot of work doing tally, guys. It's bad, I tell you. Florida's really impressive. The Gators are really impressive. I mean, the
Florida
defense
is good.
is a
They're
little
looking good.
suspect. Kyle Trask
Good.
throwing 10 touchdowns in 2 games. He's what'd you say during pre-show? He's leading the Heisman race right now. Kyle Pitts, best tight end in the nation. Kadarius Toney is electric with the ball in his hands. Florida is going to make a lot of noise, and I think if Dan Mullen can't beat Georgia with this squad this year, his feet are going to get to the fires pretty quick. And oh, by the way, speaking of that, Auburn, come on, man. Bo Nix is like, I guess he's just that one of those quarterbacks that just is 7 foot tall and can throw the ball out of the stadium and just can't quite get over the hump. And that's just something that I don't know. Auburn at some point has got to hit the reset button with this, and I hope it's for their sake sooner than later. But yeah, the rest of the games, there's some good ones coming up. But hey, the biggest takeaway I had was they're playing, and it looks like it's going off without a hitch so far, and that's really good news.